Hello, my name is Clifford Gardner, and I am a student at Thomas Edison State College. I'm currently pursuing a bachelor's degree in criminal justice, and welcome to my prior learning assessment portfolio. This video should serve to give you a very short description of primarily my professional career within the law enforcement field, as well as some background upon me in general. First, I always enjoyed helping people. And at a very young age, I found out that I was good at sports, was also very active in hunting, fishing, outdoor activities, and found that I was also a very good marksman. I became Alabama State karate champion while in high school, and I thought that the law enforcement field would provide the best opportunity for me to use both my intellect and my physical abilities to serve others. I began by working as a corrections officer in a small rural county jail in Bibb County, Alabama. During that time, I worked my way through college, attaining an associate's degree in criminal justice from Shelton State Community College. I'm sure, as you probably know, within the law enforcement field, a military background, military training, experience, and discipline are highly sought after and admired. So after completing my 2-year degree, I enrolled in the U.S. Army. I served with distinction in an airborne infantry regiment of the U.S. Army's 82nd Airborne Division. Upon leaving military service, I was immediately hired as a deputy sheriff in Pickens County, Alabama. I served in this capacity for approximately 5 years, at which point I transitioned to become a municipal police officer in the city of Aliceville, Alabama, at which I conducted operations in this capacity for another approximately 2.5 years. Following that, I transitioned out of the law enforcement field, but I've never ruled out getting back into it, and I really enjoyed it and believe myself to be very proficient, both intellectually and physically. And pursuing my degree in criminal justice is ultimately in furtherance of that goal. Although small town law enforcement might conjure images of Andy and Barney, the reality of the situation and the scenario is much different. We have the same crimes, the same criminal elements, the same problems as our larger urban counterparts, with the exception of the fact that it's on a much smaller volume. But by the time you figure out that revenue and taxes dictate that we have smaller departments, you could compare an average shift for a law enforcement officer in my area in the rural South to be the equivalent of an average shift anywhere within the country, because the lower rates of crime are proportionate to the lower number of officers there. So we encounter it all. I happen to be working as a jailer during the early 90s, which was when the crack epidemic really hit hard in our area. And then after coming out of the military and becoming a fully sworn law enforcement officer in a rural area, that's when the methamphetamine epidemic really became prevalent in our area. So unfortunately, I became very versed in narcotics very quickly. In my department, there were only 4 quote-unquote road deputies, meaning that at any given time, unless there was a special exception or circumstance, there was only 1 deputy sheriff on duty for 890 square miles and a population of approximately 20 to 25,000 people in our county. An average Saturday night would usually consist of several fights, perhaps a drug arrest or 2, a DUI arrest or 2, and on occasion rape or murder. The sheriff of our county was of the opinion that if you could not handle a job, you did not need to be here. He had the one riot, one ranger approach, as I'm sure you're probably familiar with the famous Texas Ranger saying. He did not need needy officers who could not function without backup. Your nearest backup may be an hour away, so you had to handle your business in a successful manner by yourself. On the negative side of that, a lot of young officers who might have progressed into good officers perhaps became burnout quickly because of the lack of immediate supervision and the lack of backup and the lack of safety and security. However, those of us that were able to function independently in such volatile circumstances were given the opportunity to excel. Likewise, our sheriff really sought to provide us with all the tools necessary to do our jobs. So even as what in most areas would be considered a rookie officer, someone with less than a year, 2 years on the job, we were already, and when I say me, I mean me and anyone in a like situation, were given the opportunity to attend advanced trainings almost immediately in regards to narcotics investigation, interview and interrogation, special weapons and tactics, crime scene investigation, and we were given the freedom to handle our cases. Whatever occurred on our shift, that was our case. If it was a narcotics arrest, there was no vice division that we transferred that arrest to. If it was a murder, there was no investigator that we passed that information along to. It was our case from beginning to end, and although that did afford the opportunity for a lot of mistakes, that afforded a lot of learning opportunities to where you were really in a situation of sink or swim. You had to become proficient very quickly. As such, officers in our areas tended to either get out of the field or mature and progress very rapidly, of which I'm fairly proud of myself that I persevered and was able to accomplish a lot of these tasks. So even as a junior officer, I was investigating murders, managing confidential informants, conducting covert narcotics buys, conducting tactical operations on clandestine laboratories. It may sound a little country, but in our area, the crime level was so great that it was virtually like hunting in a baited field. Criminals were on every corner. We simply just had to go out and do our jobs, and we could excel. Likewise, since small town America, everyone knows everyone, you can't have an officer specifically assigned to be an undercover operator. So what routinely happens in rural areas is we borrow officers from other agencies, and we also loan ourselves out to other agencies. So during this time, I also had the opportunity to work undercover, never deep cover, which means for multiple days or weeks at a time. They were all very simple 1 day, 2 day meetings, buy and busts, those types of operations. But at the end of the day, that provided me with a vast amount of training and experience in the areas which I intend to focus on within this portfolio. Hopefully, throughout the presentation of my narrative and my training documentation, my resume, and other items presented within this portfolio, I will be able to clearly and concisely articulate that my level of knowledge and expertise moves far beyond simple experience and equates to college level learning. I hope you enjoy my portfolio, and thank you.